Good afternoon and welcome to Little Steps Live. Today in Hong Kong, my name is Nikki and thank you for joining us. Are you struggling to get on top of your finances? Unsure about what's coming in and out and whether your books will balance at the end of the month? Or perhaps you'd like to make your money work harder for you with the right investments but don't know where to start? In recent years, the gender pay gap has widened. Our pensions are lowering in value, yet we live for longer and spend more of our lives caring for others. All of this negatively affects our finances. As women, we tend to be paid less, work less, and take fewer risks with our investments. Typically, the balances of women's retirement are 30 to 40% less than men across the globe. And as women tend to live longer than men, we will most likely be in charge of our family's finances, making it doubly important to be financially aware. If you wish you knew more about investing but don't have the time or inclination to meet with a financial advisor or your bank, you're not alone. So today we're tackling the topic on what women need to know about their finances and how to become financially savvy. A few friendly reminders from Little Steps before we get started. We are live twice a month, and if you want to be reminded of our live sessions directly to your phone, make sure to check our Facebook events calendar and simply click the topics you're interested in. Please also sign up for our weekly newsletters across our cities in Asia, from Hong Kong to Singapore to Kuala Lumpur and beyond. The link for this is in the description below. Now we are live, so feel free to ask us any questions, add comments, and interact with us right here, right now. If you don't make it, don't worry. We will get back to you after the live session has ended. So feel free to ask any questions at any time. To talk about getting in control of your finances and the gender and investment pay gap, we've invited Nicole Denholder. She is the co-founder of a female-focused financial education platform called Sophia. She's also an experienced investor, venture builder, and committed to helping women build the life they want through financial freedom. Nicole, welcome.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
As usual,
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thanks for coming today. Just a quick reminder as well, as usual, we'll be splitting today's discussion into three main topics. The first one is understanding your worth. The second is how to stick to a budget. And the third is how to become financially savvy. Let's get started with our topic. The first one is understanding your worth. Nicole, welcome. How are you today?
Good, thank you. It's nice to be on here. It's such an important topic for us all to be talking about. So thank you for giving myself the opportunity to not just talk about Sophia and what we do, but really what women need to be thinking about in terms of their money.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's get right into it. Topic one, understanding your worth. And we'll get straight to the topic as well. What do women need to know about their money?
I think it was great that you shared some of those statistics, because there's real challenges for women in building their wealth. The gender pay gap has meant that women earn less than men do, but also thanks to the gender wealth and investing gap, women don't invest their money as much as men do. And, we can lose up to 1 million over the course of our entire careers, which is a big ticket, obviously.
That is a big number.
But I mean, whether that number varies from person to person, there's a sizable amount that we do lose because of this. So what we're really focused on is, investing, but investing our hard-earned money. It's really around we can have more life choices. We can give more to ourselves. We can, do things with our loved ones. I mean, money shouldn't be this scary or challenging thing. It should be something we embrace. And just touching on some of the statistics, when Alvest in their money survey came out and said, being in control of our money is the number one confidence booster for women, which is really important because financial power is something that we should be focused on for ourselves. And the more we budget, save, and grow our wealth, our life satisfaction increases as we age. And you had talked already around the issues around retirement and women, living longer, having less money. And, this is all very tied closely from an early age, that we need to think about not just growing that money, but the satisfaction we have being in control. Women spend more making economic decisions for their families every day, that really from consumer goods to services. Women, when they do spend money, they analyze, they evaluate, they search for shopping deals, which all takes a lot of time. Women respond more to sales, like 74% of women respond to sales versus 57% of men. Women use more coupons for men. So we do approach money in a different way. And we're seeing, and there's the results we're seeing that are a little bit different.
Yeah. Now, it's very interesting because I do see it. Women do respond to money very differently. Men might be a little bit more risk-taking, but women tend to control the financial households in the house, yet they tend to be a little bit more less risk-taking. So I do wonder how we can get over that, which kind of brings me on to the next questions. What are some of the obstacles women face when building wealth?
Well, we've just mentioned so many statistics and issues. And just thinking about these financial situations can stress a lot of people out. Okay.
Yeah.
So, your energy just disappears thinking about what do I need to do to get on top of this, right? How do I get in control? Because you'll hear there's a few words I'll say over and over again today, and control's one of them.
Yeah.
And we don't know where to start, right? We may not feel knowledgeable enough to know where to start or how to start. It might seem insurmountable. You've just touched on a really good point, Nikki, that women can be very good with money, good at the budgeting, and we're going to touch onto budgeting a bit in our second topic. But it doesn't leave us time to learn about how to invest our money. How are we securing our future wealth? It's this role that we need to take on. We need to really be thinking about our future as well as today. That's something that's quite important. But one of the obstacles we've really found is that for many of us women, and if anyone listening to this will take a moment, is think about the socialization of money. How often growing up did you talk about money? Did you talk about interest rates, or did your family talk with you about money topics at university, or in your social environment? Now, how often are you talking about the interest rate you might have on a loan, or what are you doing to manage credit card debt, or what are you doing for investing? This type of discussion women aren't having often enough, and that also contributes to the lack of confidence, the feeling that I'm not in control, because we're not including that just in our day-to-day lives, and we really want to see more of that. And then being clear on priorities. What's your why in getting on top of your finances? It makes us purpose-driven. It energizes us into the action we need to take.
It's a very good point. From understanding, it's all very good that we want to build wealth, but why are we building the wealth, and why do we want to do this? And going back to the obstacles and what you were saying, why do you think women are not discussing wealth with one another as much as men are, for example? Because I know a lot of men, I hear their conversations, they're talking about investment. Cryptocurrency had a huge crash, so everyone's talking about it right now, all the men. But then I don't hear a lot of women talking about it as much as men. Why do you think women are not as comfortable talking about finances as men are? Is it just a lack of understanding?
I think it's a number of things. I think it's that kind of I look at gender education, it's that kind of overtime socialization. If we've not been brought up around that from a young age, we may not have that confidence. We might have not just the familiarity or even the language to use, and I think it's making ourselves more comfortable about the language that is used, more comfortable about understanding what we want financially. Because that actually drives, getting a handle on our savings, our spending, our debt, our goals. So I think that all really does come into play. And but I wanted to say on the crypto item, there's a fabulous group in Asia called Satoshi Women. It's a community here that just focuses on cryptocurrency. And we did an interview with them, a podcast with them last week, talking about what's been happening in the market. So if you want to know a bit about crypto, if we've kind of piqued your interest, if you go to our website under our podcast, we've got an episode with Vivian Koo from Satoshi Women talking about that. So I would definitely recommend, practical advice is what I'm about.
Yeah. Absolutely, that's great. I mean, we will definitely find that link, and it will be in the comment description and in the link. So for women who are interested in cryptocurrency, because I sure am. So I would love to see that, and definitely go to the podcast. It will be in the comments. We're just going to be finishing off topic one right now, which is understanding your worth, and we're going to be asking, what do you think are some of the best saving options for women? Because as we said before, women are probably going to be outliving often their husbands, so they'll be taking care of the financial household toward the end. So they'll definitely need to look at the best saving options. And I can see in my family, the elderly women have not taken care of their saving options when their husbands have passed away, and they're kind of in a situation that they're very unfamiliar with.
Yes, and I mean, when there's big change events like that for someone, it's difficult to quickly educate and equip yourself. So the earlier we can all be thinking about being part of the discussion, and I think what we really want to emphasize, it's not about you individually being the one that's in control. There is that, but if you're in a partnership, you're in a family, you're in a relationship, that it's together being aware as well, right? Because when we talk about some of these goals, if you're in a relationship, it's joint goals. It's understanding who's the spender, who's the saver in the relationship. How do you cope with different expectations of maybe the lifestyle, or I want to spend money on that, but you prefer to spend money here. So, that all is really important. Communication is so key when we think about our savings, our budgeting, and setting goals. And we'll talk quite a bit about budgeting and setting goals today. And really, it's understanding what you want to save for, how much do you need to save? Is that savings driven by cutting back on non-essentials spending that you might be doing? Is it looking for a pay rise, which can be a difficult thing to do, but maybe something that may help you in terms of getting some more income into the household, looking at extra income sources, whether there's a side hustle you've always wanted to start, and that might be the opportunity to, if you can balance that, and really starting to grow whatever you have in investing. It doesn't matter how small it is, just starting is so key.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's a really great answer, and it really gave me a lot of insight as well, because I think it is very important that if you are a couple, it is important to discuss your finances together, and it shouldn't be a separate task from one another. And it's very important to understand each other's goals and desires and work towards that.
Yep.
For those who have just joined us, we are here today with Nicole Denholder from Sophia. We're discussing what women need to know about their money. We've just finished off topic one, which was understanding your worth. And we're now moving on to topic two, how to stick to a budget, which is probably a very important topic for most of us. So how to stick to a budget. Nicole, why are budgets so hard to stick to?
Okay, so it doesn't matter really how much money you have. You have a lot or not so much. People from all walks of life struggle to budget. Okay, now, first of all, either you might think it's boring, it's too hard, it's going to take too long, I know I won't update it, I'm not sure what I want to do with it. So no, I think that you don't feel alone, okay, if you haven't done any budgeting to date, and you're not alone. So that's okay. So don't worry. And really, it's hard to stick to, because it's bringing together all your personal finances, certain items that you need to be tracking, ensuring that all your incomings and outgoings are accounted for. Obviously, that takes a lot, and there's two key points about budgeting. One is making the budget, which takes time, and then two, being consistent and sticking to it. Again, time consuming. We're all quite busy, right? So I do think that comes in. But the consistent effort is required. And I mean, part of it might be that you don't feel this burning financial need, to get that budget done, and managing it. And so often it's very easy for it to continue. It might be on our list, but it always stays at the bottom of the list. And the trick is, how do I get it up to the top of my list? I mean, I think that's the the next thing we'll be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting it to the top of the list, because it, like you said, it is always there, hovering behind us, but then we kind of drop it, or it's like you said, it kind of falls away quite easily. So how do we set ourselves budgets that are realistic and that can get on top of the list?
So I'll take you through a few steps. So I mean, what it does is, getting a budget in place really starts with keeping track of what you have and how you wish to manage it. So really, you're looking at getting your income identified, your expenses identified, and then really your aspirations and your wants. What are some of your goals around and your saving needs? Kind of you're starting with that. And it's not just important to get that information together, but then it's important around setting time to do it. So what we, firstly recommend is you need to just set some time and do this in baby steps. This doesn't all have to be done in one day because it just will feel too much. Really understand what information you have that needs to go into a budget, and just sit down and first of all, set some time aside to find that information. So your starting point, go out and work out where are all the information about my income, where's all the data about my expenses or what I'm spending, where are the receipts. Actually just say, you know what, by a certain date or a certain morning, I'm going to pull that together. Okay.
Yeah.
That's first step. Then actually sit down and do that first budget, right? And in our Money Basics course, we have created this awesome, super handy budgeting tool because we know how hard it is. That makes it all easier. But if you've got a tool like that and you've got your data, then you just need to sit down, and the next step is put that in there. Okay. Making that, and setting time to do that. Okay. And then actually ongoing, we talk about sticking to it, but you need to think about this as a process and what's the easiest way to do this going forward. And it's kind of a bit of making it as streamlined as possible. So if you have receipts that that are, say, paper receipts, if anyone still has paper receipts, like making sure they're going into an envelope consistently and going into one spot. Or if you're getting email notifications of information you need to put in the budget, set up a folder in your accounts that you just quickly save everything in there, or you can set up auto feeds. And then what you're doing is then what you need to do is you've found your information, you've set up a way to find it regularly in a simple way that you feel on top of, you've created this budget. Now you're setting this weekly, monthly, or quarterly time to update it. And you want to actually schedule this in your diary. Open your diary, put it in there and say, I'm going to do this. Make sure it's not a Friday afternoon, Saturday morning, make it a time that you will do it, because I think, weekends disappear really quickly. We often leave things for a weekend, but, it might be Tuesday night after the kids go to bed once a month, one Tuesday a month for 2 hours. You might go, okay, from 8 to 10, I'm going to do this. It's trying to find something, or it might be a Thursday morning where, you have some more quiet time. So it is around scheduling it and knowing that you can possibly achieve that, and just do that for 3 months. Let's get started, right? This is, and I also mentioned that goals, and what you also are doing as part of that process is making time to consider what are some of your lifestyle goals, what are some of the things you want to achieve, because that's the stuff that you're going to work out as you're setting up your budget. So that becomes quite important too.
Absolutely. Would you recommend to do this, as we were saying before, to do this as a couple, as a unit, to make these budgets as together? Or because sometimes you'll have different lives, you might be working at different times. So for you it might be a prime time to do it at 3, and for him it might be a prime time to do it at 8. But would you advise to do it together or perhaps separately, and then put your budgets together to see kind of how different the budgets are potentially?
Yeah, true. Maybe how different your goals are. I think it also comes down to how you tracking, maybe, is it joint credit cards, separate credit cards that you have, bank accounts, joint bank accounts, separate bank accounts, where income's going into. I think it a little bit will depend by couple based on your own situation. Using a tool that everyone can access. It might be that you're updating it at different times. Maybe it's once a quarter you sit down and find that common time to look at it together. Because I think if you do live it's hard to coordinate that time. I would do it separately then, because you want it done. Done is better than
exactly.
That's right. Yeah,
absolutely. So that brings me on to the next question, which is always a big one. How can we spend less, cut spending, and reduce debt? What are your top tips?
Yeah. Okay. So, I mean, what you're going to find once you've done the budget is you're going to fall into one of three categories, which either you're going to have a balanced budget where your incomes and your outgoings are pretty even. So you kind of can see that, okay, things are working. You might have a shortfall where you're spending more than you earn. Or you might have a surplus where you've actually got good disposable income and you're really thinking, how do I save and invest that? So I think that's where we talk about getting into control. Once you've done that budget, you can understand, okay, where am I financially? Am I having to start reducing debt or looking at my spending, or actually can I save? Because you might be in a better spot than you think. You don't know, right?
Exactly. You never know. Absolutely.
And obviously, the longer you do this, the more you'll see where there's things like holidays come up and impact your budget. So you're going to have things that, outliers that might, come into play that you might want to prepare for better next time. And I think we're going to talk about some savings later.
Mm-hmm.
But this will really give you that opportunity to understand your comings, your goings, understand that. So for example, if you have a number of credit cards, can you consolidate them so that instead of looking at multiple card statements, how are you trying to minimize that so that you don't feel overwhelmed by, all of this paperwork coming in, and understanding my spending is very disparate across cards. Looking at loans, the trick is really to start as early as possible to repay them. Make sure you're meeting any repayment deadlines. Don't miss any, because you then might get penalties that can really financially impact you. Paying off any loans with the highest interest rate first is really important. And when you're looking at setting up things like loans or looking at debt, trying to make additional payments if you're allowed to do that, if it's structured. So always looking at the fine print is really important as well, particularly if you think you might miss a payment here or there, because there's often something that comes out. And all of that can come through, because what you're really trying to do is, how do I get down some of that debt, so I can be reducing some of that high interest rate debt, the things that I can move faster, so I can be moving it to something that's a bit more valuable, right? So, versus paying off a car, I want to be paying off a house, if you even think of different types of debt, right? So thinking of it that way. Now, regarding spending, it's not about cutting it or not, because spending's not necessarily a dirty word, but it's really, I know we think it is, and it's not a spend-save equation. It's about using your budget to understand your financial situation. So once you can see what position you're in, you will better understand, I can afford to buy the things I love, or, it's really important to me that I do buy them. So what else will I change in my spending behaviors? And I think that's what a budget can really help you with. Understanding what's a priority, and coming back to this communication with your partner. You've put all this money, you've put all this knowledge together. Now, what is everyone's particular? I really love to, like maybe it's go out X times per month, or I want to buy this, and you go, well, these are priorities to me. What isn't a priority? So I think that's really important. So we don't have to think of it as a bad thing. And it really comes back to setting those goals and priorities.
Yeah, absolutely. And just thinking, as we said, how women need to discuss more. This is also having a budget and doing those cut spending and reducing debt. It's also a great conversation to have with your daughters and your sons at home while you're doing the budgeting, to kind of get this conversation going and teaching them as you go along as well, I imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there a wrong, or is there a great age to kind of start with that, to kind of start talking about budgeting and setting realistic budgets?
No, I think some research shows that kids as young as 5 have already formed, an understanding or an emotional reactions around saving and spending money. So I think you can be talking to them quite a young age, and including that, or even giving them to one, understanding what they want versus what they need is important, including them when you're shopping, going to the bank, discussing how things cost. I mean, just in incorporating them in that, like if you're using coupons to buy things, you can explain how you found that, why you're using it, or what buying in bulk means. Why you want to maybe be shopping weekly with a list versus daily without a list,
That's a great thing, because I see myself without a list getting all the stuff I don't need.
And that's what they often learn just by watching and listening as well. So just incorporating them is so key.
Yeah, just getting them involved as young as possible, I think, is a great idea. Thank you. So we're already moving on to topic 3. This has gone great. So for those who are just joining us today, I'm with Nicole Denholder from the financial education platform called Sophia. The link is in the description. We are discussing what women need to know about their money. And we're now moving on to topic 3, is how to become financially savvy. I love this topic already because I want to become more financially savvy. So this is great. So how do we build up an emergency fund? And what is an emergency fund exactly?
Well, I think, we've all heard about this concept of the rainy day, and it's important to have money put away for that, right? And I mean, that's effectively what an emergency fund is. At Sophia, we call it the Fierce Fund. We want you to go ahead and save that. And we do actually quite a detailed module on this in our course, really taking you through how to build this out. But the general rule of thumb is to build a reserve equal to about 3 to 6 months worth of your necessary expenses. So you really want to be thinking about, okay, even when you start the budgeting process, it's all tied together, but it's thinking through, okay, if something changed and we needed to have some money behind us, do we have 3 to 6 months worth of our expenses covered? And I mean, that's kind of a rule of thumb. If you don't have that, that's what sitting down and budgeting and just taking these small steps we've talked about do, and trying to move from feeling overwhelmed to feeling in control. So that's super important. And, what you can do is with the budget is actually really dig into what you can start saving for. And obviously there's things that you're having to pay off. So in a way you might feel like not that you're saving, but you're using money to pay off debt. That feels like saving sometimes, depending the way you look at this. But then there's savings for the emergency fund. And so it's really about making it manageable and achievable amounts, and they can maybe change by month. So you may know that certain months, and this is where I was saying earlier, the longer you spend time on this, you'll pick up that you have heavier expenses some months than others. So you know that you'll be saving less some months. That's okay. Maybe setting up an auto debit into a savings account. It could be a really great way at a minimum to be moving money, for example. But the trick's consistency. It's not necessarily ambition, it's consistency here, and tracking it so that you stick to it.
So you would say there is no actual set amount, 10 to 20%. It's just more about being consistent and what you can afford and budgeting yourself.
Yeah. Well, and if say something did happen to your job and you had to, there was no income, can you cover expenses for 3 to 6 months? Because it would typically, find, and that's the type of thing you're looking for at a minimum. That's your starting point, is how can I feel in control that if something did happen, we're okay for a little while.
And are emergency funds usually saved separately from a savings account, or are they in a different account, or do you set up a separate emergency fund, or is it just on your bank account?
It can be in your bank account. I mean, I think this is where keeping it as simple as possible.
Yeah, exactly.
Because if you're thinking about, I've got to set this up and set that up. For example, if you have a savings account, you know what this number that we're talking about is, you just know that when you're checking your accounts, for example, that's always sitting there. So you're not really dipping under that. And then, part of this is if you do dip into it, and this comes into, sitting down, say quarterly with your partner, or if you're not with a partner, sitting down and looking at your information regularly. Okay, you dipped into it. That's okay, but why? And understanding, was it for the right reasons? And, if you've dipped into it for something that's not essential, then you need to look at your overall spending patterns and come back and look at that. And that's how you continually just tweak as you go along over time. versus thinking, oh, I've just blown all my money again. That's it. No.
Which, yeah, absolutely. You know, it's very easy to get into savings and emergency funds because you think it's just sitting there anyway. Yes. And I'll get back to it, or I need this right now. So yeah, no, it's very good to keep yourself to a budget and to, like you said, to understand why you dipped into it. Because I think
and
just dip into it.
And being kind to yourself is important here, right?
Absolutely.
No one's perfect, so you just that's why we come back to consistency. Just trying is the starting point.
Absolutely. So for women, what is a good way to start building an investment portfolio, for example? Because that's another topic that I think women can find quite daunting on how to build that investment portfolio for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great question. And once you feel you have your financial house in order, so to speak, it's time to think about how you're going to put your money to work. It really doesn't matter how small that number is. The key part's growing it. So what it's about is really building an understanding. So if you're not doing investing, or even if you've started, but it's what are the different investing options that are out there is the first step. Your risk appetite. I mean, what would make you not sleep at night? You've got to be thinking about what kind of, depending on the type of investment you make and the risk associated with it, what's your comfort factor there? What are your goals around investing? Is it somewhere that, it could be something about buying a house, for example. I mean, and that's an investment for you as well as a family goal, for example, right? Or upgrading your house or something. So, I mean, what are your goals and what can you afford to contribute towards investing? And again, coming back, it doesn't really matter what it is at starting, but that can also change over time. But what do you have now? What do you have in the immediate to short-term future? What do you think you'll have long-term? And trying to understand against those timeframes what you can afford to start working towards now. This has come up quite a lot. It's a really good question because in June, we're launching a whole course just on introduction to investing because we're really talking about investing mindsets rather, like, myths around investing, your money mindset around investing, the basic principles of investing, asset allocation, right? What are the different ways I can put my money to work? What are the trends out there? We've already talked about crypto. Now, is that something you should be thinking about or not? That we talk about different trends. We're certainly not advising. We're just sharing, we're an education platform. So we just share about, what's out there. So this is a really great first place for anyone wanting to start learning about investing because those are the elements you need to know.
And when is your course starting? Because I know you currently have your money basics course going on, which is super interesting. Yeah, and your next one will just be about investment then.
Yeah, we're on a run on course production at the moment because we're getting such great feedback. So we had recently just launched our Your Money Basics course. We just went live this week with a kind of a follow-up to that, which combined we call our money wellness package, and that's bundle, and that's kind of your money basics but around wealth creation. And then in June, we are coming out with our introduction to investing course. And so that's just in final stages. So, we've kind of prepped it. So I know what's in there. And I'm really excited because I think that's that next step we all want, right?
Yes,
I mean, let's move on from budgeting to what can
let's go to investment. Let's actually make our money work for us instead of always working for our money.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. And just a quick question about your money basics course. Is it virtual? Is it face to face? Are you having classes or what's it like?
Yep, absolutely. No, thank you for asking. So given what's kind of the recent situation we've all been in, we've made it virtual at the moment. So it's actually an online course on our platform. It's in bite-sized, digestible videos. We've got either a budgeting toolkit. Our second course on Money Basics has this fantastic workbook. We've got Introduction to Investing coming out, and again with all videos and a workbook. So the whole idea is that we're trying to make it that you can kind of watch it on the go. I know what children, if you've got children around, they're like, oh, there's a video on. And so we are trying to make it that you can do it in a way that it fits in with our lifestyle. So you can either do it all in one go, and they all range from between 30 minutes to 60-minute courses. So plus any work you want to do outside of that on the workbooks and the tools, but they're quite manageable and a great starting place.
Fantastic. No, great for when you're a mom at home. You can just turn it off and on when you want, or get those times when you feel that you have the time to do it. That's awesome. So let's just finish our topic on how to become financially savvy. And I think a big question for a lot of women is about when to start their retirement fund and how and when to start it.
Yeah. Another great question. And really, you can never, ever start too early thinking about retirement. I know it might seem far away, or actually you want it to be far sooner. The goal. The thing here is to understand really, what does retirement look to you in your relationship, to you with your wider family? I mean, what do you want? When do you
envision? Yeah,
and you need to ask yourself some key questions around, what does it look like? When do you want to retire? Kind of your goals around that. Where do you want to retire? What type of lifestyle do you want? Is it very similar to what you have now? So it makes it very easy to estimate, probably what you need, or is it something very different, which you have to think about, what am I going to need? And that all comes back into that magic number that you will need to start working towards. And I think here you may not have all the answers, and and if it does feel far away, it's really just about going back to that budget, looking at your investment, and really starting to form views around your financial goals around retirement, and really how can you start tying all these pieces together over time. So I think that's the best way to approach retirement if it's not front and center right now. If it is, you've got to answer key questions and start putting, your needs, your wants, and the numbers around that.
Very good. And would you recommend, as I said before, we might have elderly parents and elderly women in our life. Would you advise us to check with our parents and check with their retirement fund, or should this be a separate thing that you should not meddle in your parents' finances? Because I do have a lot of friends who parents passed away, and the women in the lives do not have a retirement fund. And since we are becoming more financially savvy, should we help our parents and checking in with their retirement funds, or should we leave that separate?
Well, I think, you can always be asking your family, because they may not feel comfortable asking you.
Exactly.
Right. If they feel embarrassed about the topic, or not knowing, or don't really know where to start, if they haven't had the opportunity to be the one dealing with finances, they may appreciate you reaching out. And it's not that you have to have all the answers, because this is where you can look at education tools like Sophia to build understanding. There are financial planners out there that can come in and help. When you're actually, people who do, there's those different pieces that can come into play. So I think you don't have to take that on yourself if you are worried or want to know. Mm-hmm. Help be that conduit for them to feel more comfortable and to get the pieces in place if they need it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for today. I think this was an absolutely fantastic topic. And before I sign off, I do want to discuss your Money Basics course, because if people do want to get serious about getting a handle on their cash, your newly launched Money Basics course, I think, is the perfect one, which focuses on exactly what we've been discussing: budgeting, saving, managing debt, reducing spending, and also building an emergency fund. And we've discussed a little bit before, so can you let us know? So we just find it on sophiawomen.com. And this course can be taken at any time, at anywhere.
Yes. And yes, if you go onto our website, we've got a courses page, and you can see the types of courses we have now and upcoming courses as well. As I mentioned, we have launched actually two parts of Money Basics. Your Money Basics and then Your Money Basics Wealth Creation. So you can buy even that as a bundle with a discount. So because we have just launched and we've got a discount till the middle of June. So jump on and take advantage of that. Because the wealth creation then goes a little bit more into the principles, and we talk about relationships with money, dig a little bit deeper into some of the concepts we've talked about today as well.
Absolutely. That link will be in the description, as well as the link of the podcast that she was discussing regarding cryptocurrency and how women can get more information regarding cryptocurrency. She also has a new, Sophia also has a new course beginning, as you said, about investment. So also look out for that one.
Yeah.
Nicole, I want to thank you so much for today, and thank you for joining us, and good luck with everything.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you for letting us just talk about this important topic, share what we're doing at Sophia. We really want to be, just helping women learn about their financial position and, creating the life we all want, right?
And getting in control of our finances.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for our listeners out there. Thank you for joining us on Little Steps Live. And if you'd like to see more of our videos, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This video will also be on there. Follow us on social media, and of course, subscribe to our newsletters. We shall see you soon, very soon, and have a great day. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.